The enemy fleet moved slowly through the dark space, following a quiet signal that looked harmless on every scanner. Their screens showed a small, weak human transport craft drifting near the border. For years they had seen these kinds of ships, slow, soft, and easy targets. Their commander, Varkon, watched the signal and smiled. He believed humans were always running, always scared, always trying to hide behind weak machines. To him, this mission was simple: capture the small craft, take prisoners, and return home with no effort. But something inside Varkon felt strange. The signal was too clean. There was no engine shake, no heat rise, no sign of stress. It was like the ship wanted to be seen. He leaned closer to the screen, narrowing his eyes. Still, his officers laughed and prepared the boarding crew. They believed this was just another slow human ship with no weapons. They did not know that this moment would become the biggest mistake of their lives. Far away from their view, inside the so-called transport craft, Captain Ryden stood on the central bridge. The room was dark except for soft blue lights. His crew worked in complete silence. Everyone knew what was about to happen, and everyone knew that if they failed, humanity would fall. Ryden watched the enemy fleet approaching on his screen. His face was calm, almost cold. He waited until the enemy was close enough to see every detail of the small ship. A young officer whispered, "Sir, the enemy boarding ships are ready to launch." Ryden nodded but did not order any defense. Instead, he said, "Let them come closer. They need to see it. They need to understand what they started." Outside, the enemy ships continued to close distance. Their scanners picked up nothing dangerous. No weapon heat. No shield rise. No engine boost. Everything looked quiet, normal, weak, exactly what they expected from a human transport craft. But then, in less than a second, their scanners flickered. Then flickered again. A static line cut through their screens. The officers tried to reset the systems, but the controls did not respond. One officer shouted in confusion, "Commander, our sensors are failing. Something is wrong." Inside the human ship, Ryden finally gave his first command. "Activate internal shift." The crew pressed a single code sequence. For a moment, the outer shell of the small ship trembled. Thin metal plates began to unlock. Hidden lines across the ship glowed like burning veins. The entire craft started to change shape. From the enemy side, their pilots watched in shock as the small ship unfolded like a giant machine waking from a long sleep. What they thought was a weak hull was actually just a disguise. Panels slid open, revealing heavy black armor underneath. Massive engines extended outward. The size of the craft increased again and again until it no longer looked anything like a transport vessel. Commander Varkon froze. His jaw tightened. What is that? What have the humans built? Titan 01 was now awake. Its engines roared like thunder. Its heavy armor reflected the light of distant stars. New scanner readings finally appeared on the enemy screens, readings so large and powerful that their systems could barely process them. One officer screamed, "Commander, this is not possible. No human ship carries this much power." But the ship was real. It stood in front of them like a metal giant carved for war. Inside Titan 01, Ryden stepped forward. He looked at the enemy fleet and spoke quietly, "For years, they believed we were weak. Today, they learn the truth." The enemy tried to move back, but it was already too late. Titan 01 locked onto them with perfect aim. The glow from its hidden cannons brightened slowly. Ryden did not shout. He did not celebrate. He simply raised his hand, and his crew understood the silent order. The first blast was not loud. In the vacuum of space, it expanded like a silent white explosion. For enemy ships vanished instantly, no debris, no smoke, just nothing. The remaining ships shook in fear, trying to escape, but their engines could not outrun Titan 01's targeting systems. Commander Varkon felt real fear for the first time. His pride shattered. He stared at the giant human battleship and whispered, How did they build this without us knowing? Raiden watched the terrified enemy ships scatter in every direction. But he did not chase them. Not yet. He wanted them to run. He wanted them to tell their leaders what humans had created. His eyes stayed on the screen, cold and steady. "Let them understand," he said softly. "We were quiet because we were preparing. And now, they will fear us." The enemy expected a weak transport craft. But they had met humanity's ultimate battleship. The enemy ships were still reeling from the first strike, their formations broken and their confidence shattered. Smoke and energy readings flickered across their view screens, though in space there was no real smoke, only twisted signals from destroyed ships. Commander Varkin's voice trembled as he barked orders. "Form up. Focus fire on the human ship. Target its engines, disable it before it fires again." But it was already too late. Titan 01 had already powered up its full systems. Massive engines glowed bright blue as the ship moved with precision no enemy craft could match. Smaller enemy fighters tried to flank the battleship, darting left and right, hoping to find a weak point. Each time they approached, the battleship's automated turrets activated, silent yet deadly. Laser beams cut through space with precision, destroying enemy craft before they could even reach firing range. Inside the battleship, Captain Raiden monitored the enemy. His calm eyes scanned every movement, every trajectory. He spoke softly to his crew, almost to himself. "They think they are clever. They have no idea what they are facing." The crew moved like a single organism. Buttons pressed, screens monitored, weapons charged. The Omega cannon, a weapon the humans had kept secret for decades, began humming with energy. Its core glowed brighter and brighter, filling the bridge with an almost blinding light. The energy was enormous, enough to destroy the largest enemy vessel in a single strike. But Raiden did not fire yet. Timing was everything. Back in the enemy fleet, panic began to rise. Their flagship sent signals, ordering retreat, but smaller commanders hesitated. None wanted to admit they had been fooled. One officer yelled, "Commander, they are preparing something. We cannot match this firepower." Varkin's fingers tightened on the console. Fear had never touched him before. Now, it burned like fire in his chest. The enemy tried to gather information. A small spy craft launched from the flagship, moving closer to the human battleship. It scanned the hull, looking for weak points. The sensors immediately overloaded. Screens flashed red. Alarms screamed silently, though in the enemy command room, the officers still heard panic in their own voices. The small craft exploded before it could retreat, swallowed by the invisible defenses of Titan 01. Raiden finally gave his order. "Prepare for selective strike. Lock targets." The crew moved instantly. Energy beams arced across space, hitting multiple targets with deadly accuracy. Enemy ships that tried to escape were destroyed within seconds. Each strike was calculated. No human life was lost, and no wasted energy was spent. The Omega cannon hummed, waiting. Varkon stared at the unfolding destruction. "Impossible," he whispered. His voice shook. He had thought humans were weak, but they had underestimated everything: strategy, patience, and power. The battle was no longer about capture or fear, it was about survival. Every enemy officer realized they had walked into a trap designed for them. Inside the battleship, Raiden's mind was calm. He was not celebrating victory, nor was he worried about failure. His crew followed orders with perfect precision. The Omega cannon was ready, and the battleship moved as if it were alive. Each blast, each destruction of enemy craft, sent a clear message across the galaxy. Humans were no longer to be underestimated. Varkin's fleet tried to regroup, but every attempt was met with precision fire. Titan 01 was faster, stronger, smarter than anything they had ever faced. Slowly, fear replaced anger in the enemy commanders. They realized that this was not a fight they could win. Every decision, every maneuver, led them closer to destruction. The human battleship moved silently yet with immense force. Its presence dominated the space battlefield. Enemy ships began to retreat, but Raiden did not give chase. He allowed them to see the power of humanity, to spread the story of what happened here. The galaxy needed to understand that humans were no longer defenseless. Raiden's calm voice echoed in the bridge. Let them flee. Let them remember what we are capable of. This is only the beginning. As the enemy ships disappeared into the distance, their fear remained. Varkon knew that he would report failure, but more importantly, he knew the galaxy had changed. The humans had awakened. The battleship was no longer a secret. And the Omega Cannon, the ultimate weapon of humanity, remained ready for the next challenge. The enemy expected a weak transport craft, easy to capture. But they had faced humanity's ultimate power. And the memory of this moment would follow them forever. The enemy fleet was in chaos. Scattered ships tried to regroup, but every attempt was met with the calm precision of Titan 01. Commander Varkon's voice shook as he barked orders that no one could execute fast enough. Form a defensive perimeter. Bring reinforcements. Fire everything we have. The reinforcements were on the way. Dozens of massive ships from the outer sector racing to help the fleet. They were supposed to overwhelm the humans with sheer numbers, but now they approached cautiously, aware of the unseen power that had destroyed their comrades. The pilots whispered to each other, fear creeping into every tone. The human transport craft they had expected to capture had transformed into a monster of war. Inside Titan 01, Captain Raiden stood silently on the bridge. His eyes followed the incoming enemy ships. They bring more, but they are still too slow, he said. His calm voice contrasted with the tension in the enemy fleet. The crew worked like clockwork, loading weapons, monitoring trajectories, and preparing the Omega Cannon for a precise strike. The first reinforcements came into range. They were massive, heavily armed, confident in their superiority. But confidence faltered quickly. Automated turrets on Titan 01 activated without warning, firing with deadly accuracy. Energy beams sliced through the enemy formations, destroying the first wave before they could even react. Explosions in space were silent, but the screens on the enemy fleet displayed complete annihilation. Panic spread instantly. Varkon tried to maintain control. Target their engines. Target the bridge. But every strike the enemy fired was blocked by the battleship's shields. Each attack was anticipated and countered. It became clear, the humans had studied their tactics, and they were always one step ahead. The reinforcements hesitated, unsure whether to retreat or continue. Some ships tried to flank from above and below, but Titan 01 moved like it knew their every plan. Predictive analysis ready, a crew member announced. Raiden nodded. Show them that humans think differently. The battleship moved, repositioning with a speed that seemed impossible for its size, cutting off escape paths and forcing the enemy into a trap. A small enemy scout tried to launch a scanning drone, hoping to find a weak point. Titan 01's defense systems detected it instantly. In less than a second, the scout was disabled, spinning helplessly in space. The reinforcement commander saw this and froze, realizing their advanced ships were no match for the humans' hidden technology. Raiden gave one final order. Prepare selective strike. Let them see our power and choose their path. Beams of energy shot from the battleship, precise and controlled, hitting enemy engines, weapons and navigation systems. Ships tumbled helplessly, unable to respond. Some tried to flee, but they were blocked by Titan 01's positioning and targeting. Varkon's pride shattered completely. He realized his entire fleet, even the reinforcements, were no match for this one human battleship. He whispered under his breath, "We underestimated them. Everything we thought we knew was wrong." Inside Titan 01, Raiden did not smile, did not cheer. He remained calm, watching every move. He knew the battle was far from over. But he also knew that humans had shown their strength. The galaxy would remember this moment. The enemy had expected a transport craft, easy prey, weak and unarmed. Instead, they had met humanity's ultimate weapon, and the fear in their eyes would spread across the stars faster than any report or message. The reinforcements realized the truth too late. Retreat was the only option, but the human battleship did not need to chase them. Its presence alone was enough to break the will of any enemy. Titan 01 stood silent and powerful, a living symbol of human strength and strategy. Raiden turned to his crew and spoke softly, "They must remember this. Let them carry fear back to their leaders. Let them know humans are no longer the prey, they are the hunters." The enemy fleet scattered into the dark void, forever changed. Titan 01 remained, calm, silent, and ready for whatever came next. Humanity had revealed its power, and the galaxy would never see humans the same way again. Years before this battle, humans had worked in secret. On hidden planets and deep underground bases, they had studied alien ruins left behind from a war long forgotten. Scientists and engineers had combined these ancient technologies with human designs to create something no one could imagine. Titan 01 was the result, a battleship built to be faster, stronger, and smarter than anything in the galaxy. Only a few leaders knew it existed, and fewer still knew its full capabilities. Captain Raiden had been chosen years ago for this mission. He was not only a skilled pilot but also someone who had survived impossible situations. He knew the enemy, he understood their arrogance, and he had trained his crew to move as one. Every decision they had made leading up to this moment had been precise, designed to lure the enemy into believing humans were weak. Inside the battleship, Raiden glanced at the glowing systems, the humming Omega cannon, and the crew working with silent efficiency. He remembered the first day he stepped onto Titan 01. It had felt like stepping into a living creature, a machine that could think and act almost as fast as a human mind. Every bolt, every circuit had been tested for one purpose: war. Not for conquest, not for glory, but to defend humanity when the time came. The enemy fleet had believed the humans were hiding, waiting quietly, afraid to act. In reality, humans had been preparing for years. Every weak ship, every failed mission, had been a lesson, a step toward perfection. Titan 01 was not just a battleship, it was the culmination of human strategy, patience, and ingenuity. Raiden's thoughts returned to the enemy commander, Varkon. He had underestimated humans at every turn. Varkon had believed the humans were weak, predictable, and incapable of long-term planning. He had thought they could be caught off guard by a simple transport craft. Now he would learn that humans think differently. Humans are patient. Humans plan. Humans wait for the perfect moment to strike, and when they do, their power is total. The crew moved without hesitation. Every panel, every weapon, every sensor was part of a single, unified purpose. They were ready for anything. Raiden felt a calm confidence settle over him. The enemy did not know what was coming. They did not understand what humans had built or how humans had learned to use it. In the enemy fleet, commanders were sending desperate messages. Reinforcements were approaching, but fear had already taken hold. Ships that had once been proud and confident now moved slowly, uncertain of every step. The human battleship had become more than a threat. It had become a symbol of what humans could do when pushed to the edge. Raiden looked at the approaching ships and gave one simple command: "Prepare for engagement. We end this quickly." The crew responded instantly, and the battleship moved as if alive, positioning itself for maximum advantage. Energy beams glowed, weapons hummed, and the Omega cannon charged silently, waiting for the perfect moment. The human secret plan was simple. They had built Titan 01 in total secrecy, hidden in plain sight. They had waited for the right enemy to arrive, confident that when the moment came, their weapon would show the galaxy that humans were no longer the weak species that others believed them to be. Varkon, unaware of everything humans had planned, approached his fleet's final confrontation. He thought he was leading a simple mission to capture a transport craft. Instead, he was walking into a trap decades in the making. Every strike Titan 01 would make had been calculated long before he ever left his home planet. Every movement, every energy surge, Every system had been designed to crush enemy arrogance. Raiden's eyes swept across the bridge. He felt no fear, only focus. The humans' hidden strength had been revealed, and now it was time to use it fully. The enemy thought they were in control, but humans had already decided the outcome. The battle was no longer just a fight in space. It was a message. Humanity had waited, learned, and prepared. They had hidden in shadows for years, but now they were ready to rise. Titan 01 would show the galaxy that humans are patient, strategic, and unstoppable when provoked. And the enemy would never forget this day. The enemy flagship appeared on the horizon, massive and armed with weapons designed to crush entire fleets. It moved with authority, every system prepared for battle. Commander Varkon had decided to face the humans head-on. He believed sheer size and firepower could overpower whatever the humans had built. But as the flagship drew closer, even he could feel the weight of uncertainty pressing against him. Titan 01 stood calm, its massive hull reflecting starlight like a dark jewel. Captain Raiden watched the approaching enemy ship, his eyes scanning every movement. "They think size makes them strong," he said softly. "Let's show them power alone does not win wars." The first shots were fired. The enemy flagship unleashed a volley of plasma beams, each one glowing like a bright comet in the darkness of space. The beams struck Titan 01's shields, but the armor held, absorbing and redirecting energy with near-perfect efficiency. The human battleship moved with fluid precision, adjusting its position to maximize defense while keeping the enemy within range of its own weapons. Smaller enemy fighters swarmed around the flagship, hoping to flank Titan 01. Automated turrets on the human ship activated silently, taking down multiple fighters before they could fire. The Omega cannon hummed, its energy core glowing brighter as it fed on the ship's power systems. Crew members worked like a single organism, each action coordinated to perfection. The enemy flagship attempted a boarding maneuver, sending attack pods toward Titan 01. Inside the human battleship, security teams prepared. Soldiers moved swiftly through corridors, weapons ready. When the enemy attempted to breach, they found the humans waiting, ready to defend every inch. Close combat erupted in the narrow corridors, blasters and blades clashing with deadly precision. Every intruder was neutralized before reaching the bridge. Raiden observed the battle calmly. "Target their engines and weapon arrays. Disable them without overexposing ourselves," he ordered. Energy beams lanced out from Titan 01, striking key points on the flagship. Explosions rocked its surface, sending metal fragments spinning into space. Varkon's flagship faltered but continued its assault, desperate not to appear weak. The humans held their ground, refusing to retreat. Every enemy attack was countered, every movement anticipated. The flagship fired again, but the Omega cannon's secondary systems absorbed and redirected much of the energy. Raiden made a critical decision. Prepare core overdrive. This ends now. The energy core of Titan 01 pulsed violently, radiating power that lit the bridge with a blinding glow. The ship shuddered slightly under the strain, but Raiden and his crew held steady. Every weapon locked onto the enemy flagship simultaneously. Then came the final strike. The Omega cannon released its energy in a silent yet overwhelming beam. It hit the enemy flagship squarely in the core. The massive ship shuddered, then exploded in a flash of light that lit the darkness of space. Debris scattered in all directions, but the enemy fleet had no time to react. They were already retreating, their morale broken completely. Raiden lowered his hand and looked at the aftermath. The battlefield was silent except for the distant hum of Titan 01 systems. The humans had not only destroyed the enemy flagship but also sent a clear message. Humanity was no longer weak, no longer prey. The surviving enemy ships fled into the void, carrying stories of their defeat and the terrifying power of a single human battleship. Raiden turned to his crew. "This is only the beginning. Let the galaxy remember today." Titan 01 remained in space, calm, unstoppable, a symbol of human strength and strategy. The battle was won, but the message had just begun. Humanity had risen, and no enemy would underestimate them again. Enemy boarding pods had slipped past the outer defenses of Titan-01, entering the ship through hidden airlocks. Inside the narrow corridors, alarms blared softly as human security teams mobilized instantly. The invaders moved with confidence at first, thinking they would easily overwhelm the humans. They were wrong. Every corridor, every junction had been prepared for this moment. Captain Ryden stood on the central bridge, calm and focused. Deploy all internal security teams. Lock corridors. Lead them into traps, he ordered. Soldiers moved silently and efficiently, cutting off enemy pods one by one. Blaster fire echoed through the hallways, sparks flying as enemy armor clashed with human tactics. Every intruder who thought they had the advantage found themselves surrounded, neutralized, and removed before reaching the bridge. Meanwhile outside, the enemy flagship's remaining ships attempted to distract Titan-01 with heavy fire. Energy beams struck the hull, but the battleship's shields absorbed each attack. The Omega cannon hummed louder, its core drawing immense energy from the ship's reactors. Ryden knew it was time for the ultimate move, the core overdrive. Core overdrive ready, his chief engineer announced. The ship shuddered under the strain as the Omega cannon's power levels rose beyond normal limits. Energy conduits glowed brightly, spreading a blue-white light across the entire bridge. Crew members braced themselves, knowing the ship could not sustain this for long without risking damage, but Ryden's command was absolute. The enemy boarding teams had made it closer to the bridge, but human security forces intercepted them in a narrow choke point. Hand-to-hand combat erupted, soldiers striking swiftly with blades and blasters, moving as one unit. The enemy could not break the formation. Every step toward the bridge was met with precision strikes, leaving the invaders unable to advance. Outside, Ryden raised his hand, and the Omega cannon fired. A focused beam of unimaginable power shot from the ship, hitting the enemy flagship's core. The massive ship erupted in a silent, blinding flash. Fragments of metal and energy surged into space, destroying all remaining enemy vessels caught in the blast radius. The boarding teams inside the battleship were instantly cut off from any hope of reinforcement. Their command chain was gone, and they were isolated. Ryden watched as the light from the blast faded. The enemy fleet had been shattered. Titan-01 hummed with residual energy, the ship alive and powerful, yet completely intact. His crew looked to him, breathing steadily, their faces calm but aware of the magnitude of what they had achieved. They believed they could take the ship from inside, Ryden said softly, but they forgot who they were facing. Humanity does not surrender. Humanity does not hide when challenged. We rise, we fight, and we win. The enemy's retreat was total. Any remaining ships fled, carrying the story of Titan-01's overwhelming power. Across the galaxy, intelligence reports would later describe the day humans revealed their hidden strength. A single battleship, perfectly engineered, perfectly commanded, had defeated an entire enemy fleet and survived boarding attempts without losing a single life unnecessarily. Ryden lowered his gaze to the control panels. The core overdrive had pushed the ship to its limits, but it had succeeded. The ultimate strike had been executed with precision, leaving the enemy with no choice but retreat and submission. Titan-01 floated silently in space, its energy cores still glowing, a living symbol of humanity's ability to prepare, adapt, and dominate. For the crew, it was a moment of quiet victory. For the galaxy, it was the first time humans were truly feared. The battlefield was quiet now. Enemy ships had vanished into the void, their morale broken, their fleets shattered. Titan-01 floated calmly among the stars, its engines humming softly, a silent giant watching over the aftermath. Captain Ryden stood on the bridge, eyes scanning the horizon, knowing the battle was over, but the story was only beginning. The surviving enemy commanders would carry the memory of this day forever. They had expected a weak human transport craft, something easy to capture or destroy. Instead, they had faced humanity's ultimate battleship. Every laser fired, every strategy executed, every precise strike had shown the galaxy that humans were no longer prey, they were predators when forced to rise. Ryden turned to his crew, his voice calm but firm. We have proven what humans can do. Today, we did not fight for pride. We fought for survival. Let the galaxy remember this day, not for fear alone, but for respect." The crew exchanged quiet nods. They had trained for years, preparing for this moment. Every decision, every maneuver, every sacrifice had led to this perfect victory. The ship itself seemed to pulse with quiet pride, energy cores glowing softly as if acknowledging the triumph. In the distance, stars stretched endlessly, a reminder of the vast galaxy that humans had just marked with their strength. Raiden knew that this victory was more than just a battle. It was a message. Humanity had awakened. Other civilizations would think twice before underestimating humans again. Reports would spread of the Titan 01's might, of its ability to destroy fleets single-handedly, of the humans' patience and strategy. But Raiden understood that the true power lay not just in the ship or its weapons. It lay in the people who built it, the people who commanded it, and the people who fought with unwavering courage. He looked at the empty battlefield, silent and still, and whispered softly, almost to himself, "Next time, they should expect a real transport craft." And with that, Titan 01 powered its engines fully, moving silently through the stars, leaving the shattered enemy fleet behind. Humanity had sent its message. They were not weak. They were not afraid. And they would rise, stronger than any enemy ever imagined. The galaxy had changed forever.